This is shocking. So let me get this straight, Nick Aldis, the same man who couldn't draw a dime as NWA champion, the same guy who was begging for a WWE contract just 2 years ago, now has the audacity to throw Cody Rhodes, the man who built the bridge back to WWE, the undisputed WWE champion, out of his own locker room? Are you kidding me right now? This is the level of disrespect we're tolerating in 2025? The American Nightmare gets treated like some rookie who missed his curfew. I don't care what anyone says, this segment on SmackDown has exposed something dark brewing behind the scenes, and if you're not absolutely furious about how this went down, then you haven't been paying attention to what's really happening in WWE, the setup that nobody saw coming. Let's rewind and break down exactly what happened Friday night on SmackDown because the wrestling world is still trying to process this absolute car crash of a backstage segment. Cody Rhodes, your WWE champion, the man who finished his story, the guy who carries this company on his back week after week, walked into the SmackDown general manager's office with what seemed like a legitimate concern. He wanted to address the chaos that's been erupting on Friday nights, the interference in matches, the blatant disregard for authority that's been making SmackDown look like a lawless wasteland. But instead of Nick Aldis listening, doing his job as general manager, he immediately got defensive. His body language changed, his tone shifted, and within seconds, he was pointing toward the door telling Cody to leave. Not a discussion. Not a compromise. Just straight up dismissal. The disrespect was palpable through the screen. Here's what makes this absolutely insane: Cody wasn't even being confrontational. He approached Aldis professionally, champion to authority figure, trying to have a conversation about the state of the brand. And what does he get? He gets treated like he's interrupting Aldis's lunch break. The look on Cody's face said everything. This was a man who couldn't believe what he was hearing from someone who's supposed to be maintaining order on the show. Now here's a question for you in the comments: do you think Nick Aldis would have dared to treat Roman Reigns this way during his title reign? Drop your thoughts below. The power dynamic that makes no sense here is where this gets even more frustrating, and honestly, this is what's keeping me up at night thinking about the implications. Nick Aldis is an authority figure, essentially an on-screen character with administrative power. Cody Rhodes is the WWE champion. In any logical hierarchy, in any legitimate sports organization or entertainment structure, the champion has significant pull. The champion is the face of the brand, the draw, the person selling tickets and merchandise. But apparently in Nick Aldis's SmackDown, none of that matters. He's running the show like it's his personal fiefdom, and even the top champion has to bow down to his authority. This isn't just bad for Cody, this sets a dangerous precedent for everyone on the roster. If the WWE champion can be disrespected and thrown out of an office like yesterday's trash, what does that say about everyone else's standing? Think about the psychology here. Aldis took this meeting, which could have been a collaborative discussion about improving the show, and turned it into a power play. He needed to establish dominance. He needed to remind Cody, and by extension, everyone watching, that he's the one calling the shots on Friday nights. It wasn't about what was best for business or what was best for SmackDown. It was about ego. Pure, unfiltered ego. And let's be brutally honest about something else that's making fans uncomfortable. There's a weird energy between these two that goes beyond just this one segment. Ever since Aldis took over as SmackDown GM, there's been this underlying tension whenever he and Cody are in the same space. It's like Aldis resents Cody's position, resents his success, resents that Cody came back to WWE as a conquering hero while Aldis had to scratch and claw just to get a backstage role. The historical context you can't ignore. Let's talk about something that WWE fans with long memories are definitely thinking about right now. Remember when Stone Cold Steve Austin was feuding with Mr. McMahon? Remember when The Rock was clashing with corporate authority? Those were legendary storylines that made stars and drew massive ratings. But here's the critical difference: those authority figures were characters. Vince McMahon was playing a villain. The corporation was designed to be hated. Nick Aldis isn't being positioned as a villain here, he's supposed to be a neutral authority figure maintaining order. But his actions tell a completely different story. He's acting like a heel, treating the top babyface of the company with contempt, and yet we're supposed to accept this as normal general manager behavior? The mixed messaging is absolutely baffling. And here's what concerns me about where this is heading: if this is building towards some kind of Cody versus authority storyline, it feels incredibly tone-deaf to what fans actually want. We just got through Cody's massive story of overcoming the bloodline, finishing his story, winning the championship that his father never could. Do we really need to immediately pivot into another authority figure trying to hold him down? Haven't we seen this playbook enough times? Drop your answer in the comments. Are you tired of authority figure storylines in WWE, or do you think this one might be different? The locker room implications nobody's talking about. Here's an angle that I haven't seen anyone discussing yet, and it's possibly the most important aspect of this entire situation. When Nick Aldis threw Cody Rhodes out of his office, he didn't just disrespect the WWE champion, he sent a message to the entire SmackDown locker room. That message is clear: I don't care who you are, I don't care what you've accomplished, in this building, I'm the final authority. Now, on the surface, that might seem like strong leadership, but let's think about the practical implications. You're a mid-card talent on SmackDown, you've got a legitimate grievance about your position on the card, about how you're being booked, about opportunities you're not getting. Are you going to feel comfortable bringing that to Nick Aldis after seeing how he treated the top guy in the company? Absolutely not. You're going to keep your mouth shut, do what you're told, and hope you don't end up on his bad side. This creates a toxic work environment, even in kayfabe. It establishes a culture of fear rather than collaboration. And ironically, isn't that exactly what Triple H has been trying to move away from in the real-life WWE? The new regime under Triple H has been praised for having an open-door policy, for listening to talent, for creating an environment where wrestlers feel valued and heard. But on screen, we're watching the exact opposite play out. The cognitive dissonance is real, and it's making fans uncomfortable in ways that might not even be intentional from the creative team. We're being asked to accept an on-screen reality that contradicts everything we know about how WWE is actually operating behind the scenes right now. The Nick Aldis problem that nobody wants to address. Okay, let's have an uncomfortable conversation that I think needs to happen. Nick Aldis is not connecting with the WWE audience in this role. I'm sorry, but it needs to be said. When Adam Pearce is on screen as Raw's general manager, there's a believability to him. He feels like someone who's genuinely trying to maintain order while dealing with massive personalities and egos. When Aldis is on screen, it feels like someone trying to act authoritative rather than someone who naturally commands authority. Part of this is absolutely not his fault. He's been positioned as SmackDown GM without any real build-up or backstory about why he has this power or who gave it to him. He just showed up one day as the authority figure, and we're supposed to accept it. There was no storyline about him earning this position, no angle about him being appointed by management, nothing. He's just there, making decisions that affect everyone's careers. But the bigger issue is that Aldis is trying to play this role straight down the middle, not a face, not a heel, just an administrator, and it's boring. When he's not taking clear sides, when he's not showing personality beyond stern authority figure, there's nothing for the audience to latch onto. We don't know what motivates him, we don't understand his decision-making process, and we certainly don't have any emotional investment in his character. And now, with this Cody Rhodes situation, he's coming across as unlikable in the wrong way. He's not heel unlikable where we want to see him get his comeuppance. He's annoying unlikable where we're wondering why we're supposed to care about this character at all. Comment below, who do you think would make a better SmackDown general manager than Nick Aldis? The Cody Rhodes disrespect pattern. Let's zoom out for a second and look at the bigger pattern that's emerging with how Cody Rhodes is being treated since winning the WWE Championship. Yes, he won the title. Yes, he finished his story. But what has his reign actually looked like? He's been constantly undermined, constantly challenged not by equals but by people positioned above him in the power structure. First, there was the immediate target on his back from the bloodline remnants. Fine, that makes sense from a storytelling perspective. Then we had Solo Sikoa trying to establish himself by going after Cody's championship. Expected. But now we're adding Nick Aldis to the mix, an authority figure who's treating the champion with open contempt? It's starting to feel like Cody's championship reign is less about him being positioned as the man and more about him being a prop in everyone else's story. This is exactly the criticism that fans had about certain championship reigns in the past. When the champion is constantly reacting to others rather than driving their own narrative, the championship feels less important. When the champion is being disrespected by people who aren't even competing for his title, it devalues the championship itself. Think about it, if Nick Aldis can throw the WWE champion out of his office, what does that say about the prestige of the title? If an administrative authority figure has more power than the person holding the company's top prize, then what exactly is the point of being champion? It reduces the title to just a prop, just a belt that someone carries around, rather than a symbol of being the absolute pinnacle of the industry. The moment that should have everyone concerned. Let's talk about the specific moment that really crystallized how wrong this entire segment felt. After Aldis told Cody to leave, there was this beat, maybe 2 or 3 seconds where Cody just stood there. You could see it on his face, disbelief, anger, frustration, and something else. Something that looked almost like sadness. Like he was realizing that even after everything he's accomplished, even after finishing his story, he still doesn't get the respect he deserves. And then he left. He didn't argue further, he didn't get physical, he just walked out. Now, some fans are interpreting this as Cody being professional, taking the high road, being the bigger man. But I'm interpreting it very differently. I think Cody left because he realized something disturbing. Nick Aldis has enough power that fighting him in that moment would only make things worse. Think about the implications of that. The WWE champion felt like he couldn't stand up to an authority figure because the consequences would be too severe. That's not the behavior of someone positioned as the top star of the brand, that's the behavior of someone who feels trapped by a system that's rigged against him. And here's what's absolutely infuriating about all of this: where were Cody's advocates? Where were the other top stars coming to his defense? Where was the locker room rallying around their champion and saying this isn't right? The silence from everyone else on the SmackDown roster speaks volumes about how isolated Cody is in this situation. Question for the comment section: should Cody have stood his ground and refused to leave, or did he do the right thing by walking away? The corporate structure that doesn't make sense. Here's where we need to talk about something that WWE rarely addresses but fans constantly question: what exactly is the power structure in this company? Who does Nick Aldis answer to? Who appointed him as general manager? Can his decisions be overturned? Does he have absolute authority, or is there someone above him who could intervene? These questions matter because without understanding the hierarchy, we can't properly evaluate whether Aldis's treatment of Cody was appropriate or not. In a real sports organization, there's a clear chain of command. Commissioners, league officials, team management, everyone has defined roles and limitations to their power. But in WWE's kayfabe world, it's deliberately vague, which allows authority figures to act like dictators with no consequences. If there was a clearly defined system where, say, Aldis reports to WWE management and they can override his decisions, then Cody would have recourse. He could go above Aldis's head and appeal to higher authority. But the way this segment played out, it seemed like Aldis's word is final, and there's nowhere else for Cody to turn. This is lazy storytelling that creates plot holes you could drive a truck through. And here's why it matters: when the rules of the world aren't clearly established, the audience stops investing emotionally because nothing feels like it has real stakes or consequences. If Aldis can do whatever he wants with no oversight, then why should we care about any of his decisions? If he can arbitrarily throw out the WWE champion today, what's stopping him from doing something even more ridiculous tomorrow? The Twitter explosion that proves fans are fed up. ***. Let me tell you what happened after the segment aired. Twitter absolutely exploded, and not in a good way for WWE. Within minutes, Nick Aldis and Cody Rhodes were both trending, and the sentiment was overwhelmingly negative. Fans weren't intrigued by this storyline development, they were angry. They felt like their champion was being disrespected for no good reason, and they couldn't understand the logic behind the segment. Some of the tweets I saw were absolutely brutal. Why did WWE bring Cody back just to treat him like this? Nick Aldis has go-away heat, not real heel heat. This authority figure nonsense is exactly what drove fans away in the past. These aren't casual viewers complaining, these are hardcore fans who watch every week expressing genuine frustration with the creative direction. And here's what should concern WWE's creative team: when your audience is more angry than invested, you've lost the plot. Good heel heat makes fans want to tune in next week to see the bad guy get their comeuppance. Bad heat, what wrestling fans call go-away heat, makes people change the channel because they're not entertained, they're just annoyed. The Cody Aldis segment generated the wrong kind of heat, and the social media response proved it. Fans weren't booking into what comes next, they were questioning why this storyline exists at all. What's your take? Drop a comment. Do you think WWE should abandon this storyline, or is there a way to save it? The comparison to successful authority angles lets examine what made past authority figure storylines actually work, because there's clearly something missing from this current Aldis situation. When Stone Cold was feuding with Mr. McMahon, there was a clear class warfare element, the blue-collar everyman against the billionaire boss. The audience could relate to Austin's frustration with corporate authority because most people have dealt with difficult bosses in their own lives. When Daniel Bryan was fighting against the authority, Triple H and Stephanie McMahon, there was an underdog narrative, the small guy being held down by corporate interests who didn't think he looked like a champion. Again, highly relatable, emotionally resonant storytelling. But what's the narrative hook with Cody and Aldis? What's the point of their conflict? Cody isn't an underdog, he's the WWE champion. Aldis isn't positioned as a villainous corporate stooge, he's supposed to be a neutral administrator. There's no clear philosophical difference between them, no class warfare angle, no personal history driving the tension. It's just conflict for the sake of conflict. Without a strong narrative foundation, the audience has nothing to emotionally invest in. We're watching two people who don't like each other, but we don't understand why they don't like each other, and we don't know what either of them is trying to accomplish beyond generic respect and authority talking points. This is Wrestling Booking 101. Every conflict needs a clear motivation. What does Aldis gain from antagonizing Cody? What does Cody gain from defying Aldis? Until those questions are answered, this storyline is just spinning its wheels and wasting everyone's time. The real-world parallels that make this uncomfortable. Here's an aspect of this situation that I think is making fans particularly uncomfortable, even if they can't quite articulate why. In the real world, WWE has spent years trying to position itself as a more talent-friendly company under the Triple H regime. They've talked about open communication, respecting the locker room, giving wrestlers more input into their characters and storylines. But on screen, we're watching the exact opposite play out. An authority figure is treating talent, even the top talent, with contempt and disrespect. The cognitive dissonance between WWE's real-world reputation and their on-screen storytelling is jarring, and it's making fans question whether the company understands what their audience actually wants to see. We're in an era where fans are more aware of backstage dynamics than ever before. We know about contract negotiations, creative differences, and talent satisfaction. When the on-screen product contradicts the behind-the-scenes reality we're aware of, it breaks immersion and makes everything feel less authentic. The path forward that WWE needs to take. So where does this storyline go from here? Because right now, it feels like WWE has written themselves into a corner. If Aldis backs down and apologizes, he looks weak and his authority as GM is completely undermined. If Cody just accepts this treatment and moves on, he looks weak and his status as champion is diminished. If this escalates into an extended feud, we're stuck with an authority figure storyline that nobody wanted. The only way forward that makes any sense is to reveal that this was part of a larger plan, that someone else is pulling Aldis's strings and using him to antagonize Cody for specific reasons. Maybe it's setting up a return from The Rock or Roman Reigns. Maybe there's a corporate conspiracy angle brewing, but it needs to be building towards something bigger, or else this entire conflict is just wasting time during what should be a triumphant championship reign for Cody. Final question for you: how would you book this storyline going forward? Give me your fantasy booking in the comments. The bottom line: look, at the end of the day, this Nick Aldis situation with Cody Rhodes is emblematic of a larger problem in WWE right now. They're so focused on creating moments and shocking segments that they're forgetting to build coherent, emotionally resonant stories. Throwing the WWE champion out of an office creates a moment, sure, but without proper context and follow-through, it's just an empty shock tactic that leaves fans frustrated rather than intrigued. Cody Rhodes deserves better than this. After everything he's been through, after the journey back to WWE, after finishing his story and finally winning the championship his father never could, he deserves a reign that positions him as the undisputed top star of the company. Not someone who gets pushed around by administrators and authority figures who aren't even competing for his title. And Nick Aldis? He needs a complete character overhaul because right now, he's generating the wrong kind of heat and making SmackDown feel less essential rather than more compelling. Either give him a clear heel turn with actual motivations, or replace him with someone who can fill the neutral authority figure role more effectively. This storyline needs to get better fast, or WWE risks completely undermining one of their biggest stars during what should be the peak of his career. The fans are watching, the fans are frustrated, and most importantly, the fans are talking about it, which means there's still time to turn this around. Make sure you smash that like button, destroy that subscribe button, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think Nick Aldis crossed the line, or was Cody out of bounds by questioning his authority? Let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next breakdown of all the chaos happening in WWE.